Well, hello, everyone. So glad you could join us today. I hope you've got your coffee and you can just pull up a chair, join the conversation. And I want to introduce you to my new friend, Analee. Welcome, Analee. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here. I really feel very thankful and I feel very honored to be here with you today. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Analee. It's my privilege. I enjoy listening to people's stories. They're very inspiring and they bring us together. God created us for community, so our stories connect us.
Yes.
Yeah. So now I've heard a bit of your story, and being that it's still May, it's still Mother's Focus in May, I figure. We can focus on our moms as long as we can. And that's where your story kind of starts. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what happened?
Well, yes, my story, as you know, I have my book here. It's called a Legacy of Love, and this is my mother. This is myself as a little baby, and
Can you
there's
pull
a
it
lot
out?
of
Can you pull that back a
there's a
bit?
lot of resemblance of my mother and myself. We're very much alike.
Okay, it's
I
out
never
of
thought
focus.
that we would
There
look
we
so
go.
much like my mom's picture. It's like a painting, and I wanted something very special. I was never really planning on having or even writing a book. I have to be very honest. It was never something that I was thinking about doing, but I must share that the story starts and how I came up with a book was because um, as I was going to church, the pastor where I was going before I married my husband Joel pulled us to the front and he said, God has a message for you all. And as we were stepping up to the front, he goes and he says a little something to my kids, but then he goes to me and he says, you have gone through so much, and God wants to use your story um, to bring glory to Him. Um, and I understood what he was talking about, but I was not really wanting to share. I even thought that maybe there was a confusion. Maybe he was talking about someone else. The reality was that I was not willing to share. It was just too painful. My mother was a true believer, and I uh, got to experience how she just brought us to Christ at a very young age. And when the pastor started sharing what he had in store for me about bringing people to Christ through my own life and what I had to experience at a very young age, just like my mother did, I was very susceptible and still trying to protect myself and protect my mother, even though she's already passed. She passed away in 1988. You could probably start doing your math, figure out my age. I'm 50, and she passed away due to placenta previa. And back in the day, she was just 35. And I was still questioning, why, Lord Jesus, why me? This is I'm very sensitive about sharing why she passes away. I'm very sensitive about sharing that what she went through, she should have never passed away. Um, it was very difficult what she
Yeah.
went through. And I have to be very open about what happened and what the story is behind all this. Um, she goes into the hospital. She used to work for General Motors. We used to travel. Um, obviously, I'm first generation born in the United States, and we were living in Mexico. She was born in Mexico, and her mother, my grandmother, but our background and all is my great grandmother was from France. We look very different, not the original Hispanics, but and then their other my great great grandmother was from France, so we're a mix. So we were traveling, and my mom would travel. She was working for General Motors at the time. So she goes into the hospital just to have a child. And as she's going into the hospital, she goes and she's going to have this baby. And she was very excited. but the doctor was bringing her and taking her back. It's still not time. She knew that something was wrong. Something was very off. She
Oh,
shared with us. She would say, there's something off. And if something doesn't go well, you know what I would want if I was to pass.
oh, she was already talking like that.
So she had some concerns,
Yeah.
and I would tell her, no, God is in control. You've always told us that God would protect us, you. You don't have to worry. Obviously, when she's sharing this, and she was a very strong believer, I was concerned, but I never shared that about me being concerned. I hold on to what she taught us to be strong in our faith. But I was concerned because she was telling me this and she was very verbal about it. The pastor's telling me, share your story, you will bring people to Christ. Um, I did want to share that, but there's another story behind that. My mom had lost a child because of my grandparents. My grandparents had forced her to lose a child. So, as before
Oh,
she becomes pregnant, she shares this when she was pregnant of that child, and she had a very hard time sitting down and verbalizing that and telling me, you know, mija, you know, I went through this because of your grandparents. This is what they forced me to. You know, your dad and I were expecting a child between you and your brother Jesse. That's why there's 5 years apart. For me, it was very, very sad. It was upsetting. I could see that she was hurting. And she said, you know, I feel really bad. And I just sat there and I listened to her, and she said, this is not what I wanted. This was not God's plan. And they forced me. And I said, and she said, I'm having this little baby child, this little your brother, your sister, um, because I'm trying to resolve this. I'm trying to make it right. This time I do have a voice. And my book says, shh, finding the courage to finally speak out. I'm finally giving my mother a voice. I'm finally doing um, what should be done. I'm finally sharing the secrecy that in my culture, in my family, we had to keep, of not being able to share what was going on behind doors, and allowing people to understand that the only way is through the Lord. And it was not easy for me to go and to start writing this. And God said, you will do this. And the more I wanted to push away, the more God was telling me, no, you're going to be sharing everything you went through. Between arranged marriages, my mom was in an arranged marriage. I went through an arranged marriage. This was not something I was, you know, excited and thrilled about wanting to share. With that, there was abuse involved. With that, there was so many other things. My grandfather was very abusive. So I have to, you know, share that. It was not fun to start writing about that. And I was having a very hard time writing. So I was very superficial as I was writing. I was not willing to go deep and deep, of wanting to be open about that, because that was going to create wounds of, I had the wounds, but that was going to create opening up those wounds of sharing openly. And I was going to go back and reflect and think about those times of what I was experiencing and what I had gone through with my mother, and what memories were going to come
yeah.
back. And
That's the thing with, I mean, you've experienced the hardships of, and you've got the pain, but there's a layer of self-preservation where you protect your self-protection. And so then to be obedient and write the book, that would have been just, yeah, like you said, opening up the wounds and going deeper and having to really, like, that's a painful process of writing that book.
very, very painful. Yes.
There would have been layers and layers. And like you said, you were writing the superficial part. Then you go back and you're going, oh, I got to add in this. And I got to
Yes.
add in this. And then the layers go down. But for
Yes.
every layer you're writing, you're helping another layer of people who are
Yes,
understanding. There's the layer that understand, but then there's the ones that understand at a deeper level,
yes,
that have
yes,
the experiential level. So thank you, because you're helping many, many people with your book, and just by sharing your story.
yes. So
Yeah,
I understood what I needed to do. And then knowing that we're living right now in some times that as a believer, and I know that you're also a believer, um, that we're living in the end times. And I don't emphasize much on that. And I try not to focus my life on that. I try to live as really general times, but I know where we're at right now. And I know that there is a big need. And I understood that I needed to surrender. And at the same time, there is a big need. This world needs to understand that it's a critical time. And if my life and my story could help and bring people and rescue people and bring them to Christ and to an understanding that we're living in a very serious time. And if my story could impact them and let them know that there is a God that loves them. And when we are going through these times, no, it's a broken world. It's not God, the one that actually is putting them through these tests. It's sometimes we cause these things, and sometimes it's actually the world that we're living in. And I would love to share a little bit of something that I have here on my book on page 195 that's related to this,
sure.
because it's very important to understand that we are here just passing life, and it's very important to understand. It says, we must encourage every soul traveling this path we call life, because as we often see, it can be a brutal journey. I believe that no one greater exists. There is no one more powerful, none more able and willing to help us than God. I have found him to be faithful and true. He is present in the middle of life's deepest storms and always near the brokenhearted. He is the only one who can mend a broken heart. He will mend your broken heart. And that's what I have found him. He has been able to mend my broken heart in the midst of losing my mother when I was just going to be 15, losing my first unborn child. I was just 5 months along, pregnant, due to the assistant. He was still not even a doctor in the same hospital where my mother started her deathbed. It
Wow.
was horrendous to even think of not knowing where my mother, if she was in this bed or if I was in the same bed that she started. It was a mental torture for me. Um, After
Well,
that, being in
to,
an
to,
arranged
to visit in the same area and have all those memories come back, and you're in a similar situation, that, yeah, a lot,
and bleeding as she was.
yeah, and a lot
They
of
had,
the enemy really is working, but God's in the details.
yes,
God's,
not knowing if I was going to make it or not. Honestly, I
wow.
had come to a point where uh, I had or told myself that I wanted that for myself, because it was easier for me to go than to stay in the midst of the pain and having to put myself back together, losing a mother, losing a child, and trying to put myself back together, and being in an arranged marriage. It's very difficult. I'm
So,
I have
explain.
hard time.
Oh, yeah, I really can't even imagine. How did the arranged marriage work?
It does not work. I actually share that as well in my book. Um, for people that have been in arranged marriages, I just, Indian people have gone through arranged marriages. I think in my culture that has to happen, but we're not willing to talk about it. If I'm willing to talk about it now, is because this needs to stop, and it's not okay. And I would have wanted my grandparents to, I've never really cried like I wanted to cry. I always wanted when I was going through that time, I wanted to have had my mother, and I share it in my book. I would have wanted someone to have showed up and rescued me. My grandparents took a lifetime away from me that I'm still right now. And it's normal. After I went through therapy, I realized it's very normal and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with me when sometimes I have those seasons that I feel sad, because it's not only what they took away from me. I'm human, and it's okay for me to cry at times because they took away um, a lifetime from my mother that she never was able to recover. And I hurt for that. I'm human because she was never able to fulfill her purpose on earth, and it hurts. And it also hurts me because I lost a lot of years of my life. And till now, I've been able to recover that. And I was filled with a lot of sadness and confusion. I was not angry at the world or angry at them. I would question them, but they would always tell me that don't question us. That's already gone. Your grandfather has already passed away. I carried a lot of sadness, and my mother carried the same sadness that I share in the book.
Well,
For
that would be a grief for what you lost.
yes,
Yeah.
for what they did to me and what they did to her. My mother married my dad, and they also married me off. But my mother and I, we both had someone that we cared about, that we had a relationship with. They broke those relationships and they assigned us someone against our will. It is horrendous. It's hard to express. I never shared this with my son. I finally become pregnant. I had a horrendous time becoming pregnant. I went through a lot of tests and hormone medication, and I went through a very hard time becoming pregnant. I finally do. I finally have my son. When he is in high school, one day he comes and he talks to me and he says, Mom, I must say that you were very happy when you and my dad started your relationship. It was very difficult for me. I could not lie to him. So one question led to another question. Um, that's when I finally had to tell him the truth. I never shared that with my husband, where I had the arranged marriage, with who I had the arranged marriage. My son starts asking me. So when he starts asking one question and then the other question, I eventually end up telling him the truth.
And are you still married at this point?
No, I had a very close friend of mine, which I did not mention in the book, her name, but she eventually figures it out. She meets my mother-in-law, which I share in the book, how horrendous she was with me. She was very cruel, and she would always bring back the fact that there was something wrong with me, and she would verbalize it even with this friend of mine. And when I was not present, and she said, you need to definitely end this relationship. Analee, there's something wrong here. And she would tell me there's something wrong with this marriage. It's like the Beauty and the Beast. When she would mention that, I'm like, what do you mean? Well, he is really ugly, and it does, there's something off here. So I eventually share with her the truth. She says this cannot work. She talks really ugly about you. It makes perfect sense that she is happy that you're married to him because he's going to eventually have his status. It seems like he's had a nice home. So I end up living in my mother's home in Mexico. So it was a convenience for the mother. So definitely I end up getting the divorce, which he didn't want at the time. It was very difficult for me to, and I share that with my grandmother. She was still alive, and my grandfather. The first thing that happens when you are in an arranged marriage, there's always money involved. That's why arranged marriages happen, because there's something involved related to money, which back in the time, Um, my mother had jewelry, she had a life insurance, she had property, she had other things, assets. But more I study human trafficking, I definitely understand, and definitely it also happens when there's family involved. It happens between families. So with
Okay.
that said, that I now I understand it's not only when it's people that are not related, it happens between families. And that's why they did that. When they grabbed all my mother's possessions, the only thing that was left was my mom's house. And I said no. So I wanted that for my brothers and myself. So when I said no, the way that they were going to get back, or the way that it was a punishment when I said no, was sending me, marrying me off in Mexico, and having me live in my mom's property, because they wanted to take possession, my grandparents, of my mom's house. And like I said, no, the punishment was for me to go and live in my mom's property.
So is this like a dowry type of thing?
Well,
Like, like like your grandparents were paying your husband's family? Am I
no,
understanding that right?
no, not necessarily. It was not, no, they were not paying, or they were not, no, it was not that way. What they were wanting was to keep, they were wanting to take control of my mom's property. And the only way that they were going to take control was, hopefully, if I was willing to let my mom's property go. But like I was not willing to let my mom's property go, they said, okay, well, we're going to go and marry her off. This is going to be a punishment to her. She's going to have to put up with this marriage, even though she's not wanting it. They were hoping that I would say, well, there you go. I'm going to let my mom's property go, because that was the last possession. They had already taken my mom's life insurance. They had already taken her jewelry and all. And they were hoping that I would say, here you go. And I said, no, because that was, what my mom had left. And I wanted it to be for my brothers, which I kept going for 30 something years, just till 2016, 2015, actually. In 2015, that's when that property finally, I sold the property, and I wanted it for my brothers, but I was already old enough to make sure that I would, split it for them, and make sure that my two brothers would have that money for them, because
Okay.
they were old enough for that. But if
Okay.
not, they would have actually kept that money. That's, what their intention was. And sadly, but I even heard it from my own grandparents' kids. That's the saddest part, when my own uncles and aunts say, well, my own aunt, because my mom only had a sister, do you really think that our parents wanted you and your brothers, you think it was all about love, when our father was collecting child support to have you all hear from your dad? You think it, and that really hit me.
Mm.
You have a plane to catch right now that will put you to think a little bit, if it was truly just because. That was really painful for me to realize. You have a good heart. That's why you and your mother were very easy to manipulate and to control. And that was very, hurtful.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
That for me was very hurtful, because I've never seen life revolving around money. I think that life has a lot more to offer than just that. So yes, it is for me, it was a wow. It was heartbreaking.
Well, and your life has value.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And when you say that, yes, all that comes into my mind. Value.
Yeah.
It was just too much. It was painful. It was heartbreaking
Wow.
to know that these grandparents, and I mentioned in my book that I know that this book will help a lot of women, a lot of men, a lot of people to realize these grandparents that in my mom's deathbed promised to take care of us, to be there for us, uh, didn't actually follow through. And I know that we have a higher value than money. There's things that money just cannot buy.
That's right.
And and I definitely understand what you're saying. And I felt really, sadly, I got to mature at a extremely young age. And I believe that even I'm 50, but I got to mature when my mom passes away. I was going to be 15. I'm telling you my age. I feel like I'm 80 at times or even older because of the experiences that I had to overcome.
Yeah,
I didn't have a choice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's tough because we want to trust our family.
Yeah.
Family and love should mean the same thing.
Yes. Sadly,
Fam
I didn't get that.
and like we value our family, we value our the family that God gave us, and the um yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yes, I had everything when my mom was around. I
And
was
your brothers are
extremely
younger.
blessed.
Your
My
brothers are
brothers are
younger?
younger. I
Yeah.
have, yes, 5 years younger, and the baby that 15 years younger. I just feel very heartbroken to know that after she passes away, everything around us changed completely, because she was actually the one that guided us. And I was very blessed because I really had my mother was our foundation.
Right.
And I'm glad that I had that foundation. But not everyone has that. Like my baby brother Louis, he did not have that foundation. And he got the foundation of my grandparents. And sadly, he did not end up in the same place like my brother Jesse and I. And because of my grandparents. And I could just say that I continue to pray over them, uh, because still at the end, they did not recognize the damage that they did. Um, I I don't carry that because from my heart, I let that go. And I told my grandmother, I said, I forgive you, but you need, and I told my grandfather the same thing. I said, you need to come to Christ before you pass. You need to come to Christ. The damage that you've done to my mom and to the family and, to myself, it's just unbelievable. I don't have the words, the harm that you've done, but I let you free. But you need to come to Christ and ask God for forgiveness, because I'm not going to carry that. I don't have that kind of heart. And I thank God for that every day. I
Mhm.
really thank God because I've released myself, and I know my mom has been released. But I don't know the rest of the family because I know that they carry a lot of anger. But I'm glad that I don't carry that.
Yeah, there's such a power in forgiveness.
Yes.
When we carry unforgiveness, it can make us sick, literally.
Yes, yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
So to be able to have that willingness to forgive is huge. It's huge,
Yes.
Annalee. And just, yeah, if you could speak to our listeners just about the power of forgiveness. Um,
Yes, most definitely. And because of that, I actually wrote a workbook of that, of forgiveness, and the 12
okay.
chapters of my book, because I think it's very important to forgive. Was it easy? No, it was not.
No.
Um, it was extremely sad for me because I sat with her and I talked to her about the damage. Why did I talk to her? Because it seemed like she wouldn't understand. It seemed like I was talking to someone that knew what she had done, and my grandfather had already passed of diabetes, and in 2003, but somehow she was having a hard time. She knew what they had done, but oh, no, 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 it already passed. He's already passed away. Let's leave it there. No, grandmother, we need to talk. Uh, Not because I'm holding that, but because it's healthy for families to talk about what happened. And families need to come to a place of healing. And we need to talk about what happened and what you all did to this family and for your own health and for our family. And then you should go to each and one of your kids and sit down and talk to them. You've done a lot of harm. And I think that God would, he would be happy for you to do this for your own good. So as I'm sharing this about my workbook, there's a lot of people that most definitely would be extremely blessed as I'm sharing this, forgiving even though you're still hurting. And this is a little bit of, my introduction of this. Um, Finding God in your circumstances. In my case, turning a generational curse into a generational blessing, what I went through. How was I able to do that? It was only the Lord. When you're trying to find forgiveness, if even though you don't know how to do it, you need to come to Christ. You need to ask God. This is on page 9. On page 9, how was I able to do this? I share in my book, Baby Steps. Forgiving even though you're still hurting. What comes to mind when you hear the word forgive? Today's cancel culture doesn't embrace forgiveness. Quite the opposite, right? We're not only forgiven permission to focus on our hurts and cling to our resentments, but we are encouraged to cancel those who've often offended us. God calls us to a higher standard as children of Christ. God calls us to forgive, even as we have been forgiven. So, as children of God, we are called to forgive. And is it easy? No, it's not. So now people nowadays want to hold on to grudges. Oh, you've done this to me. I'm going to stay there. I'm going to hold on to that. No, we should, if we just cannot do it on our own, because that's very normal, we should ask the Lord to help us.
Yeah.
We should ask God. I'm going to be very honest with you. I think my nature, and then knowing the fact that I was very much connected with them bloodly wise, that it was just a natural thing that happened to me. But if I wasn't able to do that, if I just couldn't have done that on my own, I would have actually called out to God. And I tell that to the people that are listening right now to your program. I would have actually reached out and said, Lord, I'm living in this season that it's just a natural thing that people I cannot forgive. I'm just stuck here. I just naturally don't want to forgive. But you've called me to a higher standard to forgive those that have hurt me. I can't do it on my own, but you can. Allow me, help me, guide me to be able to do this. Not because these people deserve it, but because this is going to allow me to be set free. So
Yes.
I could live in a better place.
Yes.
So I could fulfill my purpose. So I could be a better self.
Yeah.
If not, then I'm going to be in all this anger and this depression. I'm not going to be my best. So that's what I would tell the people that are listening today.
Yeah, that's excellent. We need to know how to forgive ourselves too.
Yes.
Just to give ourselves permission
Yes.
to be
I had
forgiven.
that problem. I had that problem. I have to be honest, I had that problem. I would blame myself. I was the kind that I would tend to blame myself because my grandmother and them, they would never take responsibility and ownership of all the damage. So I would go and tell myself, oh, it's my fault. I must have done something to them. I must have caused something. I would just sit there and blame myself for everything they did.
Yeah.
What they did to, they did this and this. They did this to my mom. Oh, it was me. I was the one that did that. I was the one that caused it. No, no more. I cannot take that ownership because it's not me, the one that did that. They did it and they need to take ownership. They need to be responsible, which they never will. That is okay. So I need to release myself and let the Lord know that, God, I understand that what they did is not my fault. It's not my fault. And if you have to repeat it several times, you have to do that, which I had to do that, and let yourself know it is okay. It is okay not to be okay at times. and let God know, God, help me in this area
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
cannot do it myself. And release yourself and let God take over. But you cannot be responsible over these people that have hurt you. Somehow, maybe they'll never take responsibility, but you have to let yourself go and forgive yourself. And maybe, it's going to take a while. Maybe you're going to have to continue telling yourself, but these people that have hurt you, um, it's their problem. They're the ones that have to, either they're going to take responsibility, maybe they will never take responsibility, but God somehow, the more you continue praying, the more you continue having that relationship with God, God will bring that peace that you need in your heart.
Yeah.
And because we need to have that peace in our heart, but we have to learn to forgive, whether it's ourselves and forgive these people that have hurt us, but we cannot stay stuck there because it's going to become, we will become the worst version instead of being our best version.
Yeah. I heard this thing where like it's just like we're walking, but we're not walking alone. We're never
Yes.
walking alone through this.
No.
So just keep walking, crawl if we have to, but
Yeah.
just keep moving because
Yes.
it's just one step at a time and gotta go with us.
Yes, he will.
Yeah. It's not an easy thing. And I know that the listeners understand this because there's all kinds of stuff that people are going through right now. And it's not been an easy walk for a lot. So,
Yes.
yeah, thanks for the teaching on that. That's great.
Yes. Well, thank you.
So you were released from your marriage.
Yes, I was. And as I told you, I lost my child. I was in an arranged marriage. I lose my mother. Oh my gosh, I was between life and death several times. I had a gallbladder complications, which I inherit from my
Mhm.
family. At a very young age. I didn't even know I was even expecting at the time. I really thought I was never going to be able to have children. Um, it was very difficult for me, and I share that in my book as well. Um, a lot of complications. I went for over a year with those complications of gallbladder, and just a couple of hours, and I already had the vial in my skin pigmentation and in my eyes. All my eyes of the white had already become yellow. My skin as well. I was very, very ill. Um, yes, I didn't know if
And
I was
and
gonna
and
make it or
and
not.
you're married at this point to your first.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. And I was very well, the doctor was very concerned.
Oh
He
yeah.
did say, we really don't know if she's going to make it or not. And I was actually pregnant without not even knowing. And my blood work didn't show that I was pregnant. So I could just say that it was actually a miracle that I made it, a miracle that my child was well, that he
How
actually made it.
how pregnant were you?
How pregnant was I? Well, the blood work wasn't showing that I was pregnant.
Yes, you were just pregnant.
So I could even tell you that I don't know how that happened
Wow.
because no, I
So
there
God
was
just protected the baby.
yes,
Ah,
yes, exactly.
wow.
It's just unbelievable what God does over your life, and there's no question that there is a God, and
Oh yeah.
God has always been there, and I will always say that. And my life, as I share, is a testimony that He's been there and He's helped me through the seasons of my life, and He continues to talk to me. And He was giving me, and I also share that in my book, 3 words: dream, love, and believe. And the closer that I was walking uh, to Him, He was talking to me to never give up on my dreams. Because as you know, all my dreams were taken away. Um, they were taken away. And to never give up on love. and to believe that he works everything in our favor. That even though we think that they're not, but he is actually working in our favor.
He will
So
work all things together.
yes, yes.
Yes.
So I want ladies to know that, because sometimes we think that we're losing our hopes, and that there's no reasons why to continue. But no, God is our reason. God is our main reason. And we're supposed to continue talking to him daily in our daily path, in our daily walk. And I do that every day. I talk to him, and I talk to him, Daddy God, is this what you want me to do? Is there something else that you have in store for me? I finally finished my dream to have my degree. I was going in Mexico and doing my degree, which I didn't finish. I finally finished my degree in languages. I
Oh, wow,
finally,
good for you.
because I always wanted that, and that's actually what my mom actually had. She had some of language, and she actually did some languages, and she loved to decorate, which I ended up doing myself. I ended up doing these books, and actually a cookbook as well, and in
Oh,
2 languages, which I have my books also written in both languages, in English and Spanish, and a cookbook as well. And
good
with
for you.
70 plus,
Congratulations.
thank you, with 70 plus recipes, and also the history behind all that. And so I continue working on my dreams. And so God was telling me that I will allow you to do all that. And I share that in my book. And he's been allowing me to do that. So now my desire is also to continue to do more things, but to bring ladies and bring people to Christ, and let them know that if God allowed me to fulfill each and one of my dreams, then he could also allow, these ladies and the audience that you have to also fulfill their dreams as well. Yes.
Oh, for sure. Yes, because what he does for one, he'll do for the next.
Yes.
And we're, like I said earlier, we're not walking this alone. So,
No, we're not. It's God, and it's for his glory.
well, and to
Definitely.
hear the stories, to hear the testimony of I mean, there's the Old Testament, there's the New Testament, there's the living testament of him in us. So you're sharing how he's alive in your life.
Yes.
And that's going to encourage other people to just keep going.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great, Analee. Thank you so much for sharing today.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me. I feel very blessed. Yes, thank you.
Well, it's been good. And for people who are new here to the channel, I hope that you'll subscribe and share with your friends just the encouragement that Analee's been able to give us today.
Yes.
We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.